So this is the blue ribbon pattern that has come from, well, this somehow got a ribbon. I mean, I don't know how to say all of this. Let me start over. Hey everyone, so I'm gonna run through how I put this together. I was not expecting to do a tutorial on this. Sorry, my voice is adjusting to, well, it was adjusting to like the whole fall winter transition, and then night before last I got 3 hours of sleep because I realized after I'd fallen asleep, and then I woke up in a frenzy because I realized that I locked out Charlie, Audrey, and Henry. They had gone to Scouts that night. We still have the locks on top of the door because if you don't do that, then apparently some of your children run up the mountain to the neighbors. So we have the locks on top of the doors, and I forgot to leave them unlocked. Went to bed, woke up, panicked, realized I locked them outside. They had already gotten inside and they were asleep, but I could not go back to sleep after that, so that was a 3-hour night. Between the two, my voice is a little harsh. Anywho, so I was not expecting to make a tutorial out of this. I was kind of just, I filmed this because I wanted to share the story of it. And then it won a blue ribbon and then Best in Show, and I figured that there were people who wanted to make their own version of it. So here I am kind of backtracking, explaining to you how I did it and how you can put together one of your own. I've since turned this one into a pattern. And I'm so sorry. We can do. Alright, so yeah, since turned this into a pattern, I did start with some pattern, like I started with the Martha Poland's Grandmother's Hope Chest book as a place, like a starting off place, but I've changed the sleeve, I've changed the other patterns, I've changed the shapes, I've picked here, I've changed this, I've altered it. It's mine now. Don't come at me in the comments. It's not a thing. I've talked to lawyers. I've talked to copyright lawyers. I'm good. So I'm nicely trying to say is I appreciate the concern, but we're good, and let's focus on putting this together. So how did I put this together? Well, first I cut out my pattern pieces. So this gown right here is unlined. If you want to make a lined version, you can do that. Then you would cut out 2 of your yoke fronts, 4 of the back is not on the fold, and we will get into that more. But you're just going to cut out double, right? Because you want it to be lined. So on the contrary, if you do the version that's in front of me, that's unlined. So you're going to have 1 yoke front, 2 yoke backs, 2 sleeves, and then a skirt front and a skirt back. The skirt front as well as the skirt back, it's just salvage the salvage edge of your fabric. So I've made the pattern. It requires like 2 yards and 3/8, 2 3/8 of a yard. 2 yards of that is going to be due to the skirt, right? Because each one is 36 inches. Is it? Yeah, 36, that's 2 yards. There you go. Salvage the salvage edge. So then the other 3/8 of a yard goes to the yoke and sleeve pieces. There you go. Oh, this is gonna be easy, right? You can do this. So you have your pieces cut out, and then, well, let me backtrack. If you want to do the embroidery, so I would rip 1 yard for the skirt, 1 yard for the other skirt, for the skirt front, for the skirt back. Then that 3/8 of a yard, I would leave that together. If you want to do hand embroidery or machine embroidery, although I'm not that fluent in machine embroidery, but I would leave all of that remaining 3/8 of a yard intact, because you're going to want to have extra to be able to put it into your embroidery hoop and do the embroidery. It's wintertime. The heater just kicked on. So to do the embroidery, I've got this bow on the front yoke. So sorry. I've got this bow on the front yoke, and then it's got these little like swoop-de-doos on either side and a little bit of dots and some leaves. So for the embroidery, for the bow, that's shadow work embroidery. I have done so many videos on shadow work embroidery. I'll insert like a time lapse of how I did this, but it's basically the whole idea of finding the rectangle. If you have not seen that video, It's a gem, if I may say so, it's a gem of a video of just like take a shape, kind of make it into a rectangle, make it in, find two parallel-ish lines, ways to connect one side to the other side, and that's shadow embroidery for you. Like, that's all it is. And you can do the same thing with circles. If you have not seen that video, and I mean, like 5 people watched it, y'all, like I felt like that was a, like, it's fine. So, so, so the bow is shadow embroidery. I have what colors I used on label. I have all the colors that I've labeled on the PDF download. Then the little dots underneath the bow, you could do French knots. You could do granados. I just did a C-stitch, which is just taking your needle up, going over maybe 1 or 2 threads in your fabric, just moving that needle over just a hair, and then setting it back in. And it may not seem like a lot, but you do it enough and it just kind of has like this little bit of texture, a little bit of whatever. Then doing these little swirly doos, you do the hem, not the hem, the stem or the outline stitch. To me, they're one and the same. It's just a matter of like perspective, which way you have it's kind of like tomato in my mind. But the stem stitch and the outline stitch, one you keep your thread above, the other one you keep your thread below, and you work it. I don't memorize so much which one is which because it doesn't really matter. I want it so when the stitches fall, like they lay on the last stitch, so you are creating like a supportive structure as you go along. That way the stitches kind of flow instead of like collapsing. And it makes a prettier like swirl. Then the little dots around those swirls, I chose to do French knots instead of a C-stitch or garnet or whatever. I did French knots there. Just a little bit of just another texture. It has a little bit of a pop to it. I think they're pretty. And then rounding them out, just leaves. A leaf. So the stem for the leaf is either a stem or an outline stitch, and then the little leaf part of it is a lazy daisy stitch. You know, you just take your needle up, take your needle, how do you do lazy daisy stitch? You take your needle up, you put it down, put your needle down, no, take your needle up, however long you want that to be. Oh my god, my mind is blanking. I'll just insert the clip. I swear I made this. People will ask me how I do things, and I'm like, I have to be in front of it. Like, I'm in front of it, I'm immersed in it, it just kind of like makes sense as I'm doing it, and then I disengage. I don't know, it's just kind of, maybe there's other crazy folks out there that can relate. So then we've got our embroidery done. So then I took the yoke front and I did the lace shaping on it. So to do lace shaping, like in general, pick the larger circumference and pin that down first. Ever so slightly, if you want to tug ever so slightly on that lace, that's okay. But I like to do, at least, okay, it's sewing you to you. What I like to do is I like to take the larger circumference and pin that down in place first. And I have marked on the PDF download as well, like in the pattern and all that jazz, which laces I used where, because there's a bunch of them. And I even like color coded them trying to keep them clear. So there's that. So yeah, I put the larger circumference first, pin that down in place, and then of course the smaller circumference now is gonna like gap open, right? Well, the beauty of lace shaping is you get to shape that lace into place, and so you just take out at least 2 threads on either side. Like, in the header of the lace, you'll find your pull threads. Make sure when you're ordering your lace that it says, you know, the header contains a pull thread. And you'll pull out at least 2, 3 is really nice. But, and then you just pull gently. Pull on either side, make sure you don't pull those threads out from one end to the next and just pull them all the way through your lace. That would be bad. And pull it down, and then now that you have it down, you can transfer your pins so they're not sticking up, they're laying flat. Don't stress out too much if your lace kind of moves around you a little bit in that process, because the next step is to baste it. I mean, if you want to go straight to your machine, by all means, whatever, but because there's going to be a little bit of movement between stitching those pins from vertical to horizontal, and I don't like dealing with the pins as I'm going around my sewing machine. They just poke in all the wrong areas, including my hands. So I, for many reasons, will baste. It does not take that much time, but also, I mean, you're making something like, you know, you've invested into the supplies, your time, like, this is going to be in your collection, like, just baste. It's good. It's all good, right? So baste it around, and now that we have it basted around, I did that for the side pieces as well, same sort of concept. Now we can do the hem stitching or pin stitching. I don't know which one it's called, y'all. I don't know what I'm doing. I just show up to the fair and somehow they gave me a ribbon. So I'm just good enough to be dangerous and the sweet things that the fair didn't realize. So here we are. So it's either called hem stitching or pin stitching, and do that around the edges. And that's what's gonna that's what's gonna secure your lace to your fabric. I did this using the Madeira 80 weight thread, the Aurifil, what is it? Is it also 80 weight? Aurifil, I wanna say this is also 80 weight. Yes, 80 weight. It also works wonderfully for lace work on the machine too. So that's kind of the yoke, except then I looked at my yoke and I thought I wanted some more pink. So I put in, actually, did I do that before I did? I did. Okay, so back up. Before you do your hem and pin stitching, put the pink sheet there first. Sorry. Put the pink, not sheet, fabric. It's fabric. It's a piece of fabric. I had some leftover pink Nola there, so if you want to order like a 1/4 yard of Nola, that would be plenty. Go through your stash. I'm sure you've got something that could just like add a little bit of pink of pop of color. If you don't want to do the pink, then don't do the pink. That's all good too. Either way, put that first. Then you're going to put your water-soluble stabilizer. That's the stabilizer that I use for this whole garment. To each their own. There's the water-soluble stabilizer as well as like the paper, like the Stitch in the Ditch stuff. I like either one of them for different reasons, and I don't like either one of them for different reasons. They each have their pros and cons, and you just kind of like know what you're getting yourself into, know what pros you want and what cons you can deal with, and you move on with your life. So I used the water-soluble one for this project. Went around, did the hem stitching or pin stitching, and that's the yoke for you. Now the back of the yoke is rinse and repeat. It's the same thing but without the embroidery, although if you wanted to transfer some embroidery to the back, by all means. It's sewing you to you. So I did the lace shaping for the back and secure that down with hem stitching, pin stitching, whatever you call it, using water-soluble stabilizer. And then the last thing with the back is I have this little bit of like a back facing, and that's how I rounded the back off. So this back facing, if you're okay with it being out of the fabric of your dress, then just use that. I really, really like Swiss organdy. Love Swiss. I love. Are you feeling the love that I have for Swiss organdy? Because it's intense. This thing has saved me on a number of times. It's just a lovely like stabilizer, but it's fabric. It's airy. It's pretty. It's all the good things that you want in a situation like this. So that's why I labeled a fat quarter of Swiss organdy, which Farmhouse sells. But it's only for this little bit. Of course, you can save it for other projects, other situations like that you need help in. So I just attached it with a straight stitch here, and then I secured the ends over here with a zigzag, just a tiny little zigzag on my machine, and that's how I rounded out the back of this. Once the yoke pieces and the front pieces are there, now we can bring the front to the back. I did that using a little bit of entredeux. Entredeux? Is that how you would say it in French? I don't know. Entredeux. I don't think it's entredeux. Anywho, so Watch my video on how to attach entrecôte into a seam. It'll clarify everything for you if you don't already know. And now that we have the yoke, back, and front pieces together, now we can put, we can do the neckline for it. So for the neckline, I just attached entrecôte. Who knows how to say it? Please let me know. Entrecôte onto the neckline, and that is going to provide a transition to the lace. If you just put the lace right onto the neckline without the entrecôte in between, of course you don't have those pretty little holes that sparkle at you, but it's also just not as neat of a transition. In my opinion, it's not as neat of a transition. So do the entrecôte first, and then I hand sewed. Did I hand sew? Yes, I did. Yes, I hand sewed the little bit of, this is like a 1/4 inch of lace edging that's going to be the finisher for the neckline. And then when this particular, so I marked every inch with a erasable pen. I marked every inch along this neckline because it was going to the fair, so I wanted to get my gathers like evenly distributed, right? I was not leaving chance up to my eyeballs. And then I gathered my lace accordingly, and this lace I happened to look out and it has little dots in it, so I think I did like every 5th dot on an inch. But there we go. So now we have our yoke together. Now that we have the yoke together, we can move on to the skirt. So the skirt has this like big ol' flower on it of shadow embroidery. Same sort of idea, find the rectangle. The only caveat to that is do the stem with an S. Do the stem or outline stitch first. So if you want to have the veins, like I've got veins marked for the petals as well as the leaves, do those first, because if you do those after you do the shadow embroidery, it sort of pulls on your stitches for the shadow embroidery and it splits up the shading effect. It's not as neat. So do the outline stem stitches first and then go back and do the shadow embroidery, and there's the hand embroidery for it. Then we've got this, below that we've got this like interweaving little like lace number thing going on, right? It's just lace shaping. It's just lace shaping. There are 3 different laces, 1 on either side, so there's 6 total, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so there's 6 total. One of them has a ribbon that goes through it. It happens to be a different kind of ribbon than what's on the hem. So the ribbon that goes through this is the silk taffeta ribbon. It just bends a little bit better. It's a little bit more like loosey-goosey. Hold on. For some reason, these cameras shut off on you after you talk for more than 30 minutes, so I'd rather be on the safe side than not. At any rate. So yeah, just do the lace shaping like you did before. And you can kind of do them in cycles, like you could do one piece, flip the pins, baste it, kind of get the pins out of the way, you know, so you don't have all these like glass pins, like you don't start getting, not being able to work around all the pins that are starting to stick up. So you just do them in sections, take your time, enjoy the process. You're getting to do lace work. Like this is something for your collection, right? So it's not something to rush through. It's not a Halloween costume. It's not a Halloween costume, okay? What should I talk about next? Oh, so I also took that pink fabric. I happen to use the pink, the light pink from Nola. But any fabric, you know, if you want to do some shadow effect on the back of it, put the fabric there now so you can incorporate it into the hem stitching and then cut away as it makes sense. You do want to go over the ribbon. So if you put ribbon into this beading, the beading lace, do go over your ribbon. I made a massive mistake because I sat there for a while at my machine wondering where to go, and I chose the wrong thing, and then I had to come back later and fix it, and it was all good. I fixed it. It's fine. I won't ever make the mistake ever again. I'm pretty sure I've seared that in my mind to go over the ribbon. So, yeah, just keep on going over the ribbon, and then you will have your lace work. So for some of the lace here, I cut behind the fabric, and for other pieces I did not. So the two, you can see I wanted like the different effect, you know. So the outer two pieces are cut away, the fabric is cut away from, and then the inside piece I left the fabric there. It was just a really fun project, and I hope you guys enjoy yours as well. The front of the skirt has a loop on either side, and that loop has a little bit more of a hand embroidery in it, and then I cut away the lace from behind there as well, and it's lace shaping. And then the back is rinse and repeat, although I have an extra loop on mine because I snipped my fabric by mistake. I have no memory of ever doing that before, and here I am in this like lovely zen, got my tea, fall weather, like all the themes in here, really enjoying, and I'm paying attention, and and it just snipped, it just happened. Luckily, it was at a place I just put another lace, the loop of lace, and it worked out just fine. So the back is easier than the front, doesn't have the embroidery on it, and it only has the loops on it. So then, now we've got our skirt front and back prepped, right, with the lace work. Of course, I'm still using that water-soluble stabilizer to do all of the work here. So, to finish the hem for this, I did a hem band, and I've got it labeled on the PDF download as well as in the pattern. The lace band is going to start with the entredot. The ribbon I attached to the lace using a very small zigzag. It's a pretty open zigzag, like lengthwise. All the edges are sealed up, so I'm not worried about enclosing edges, but I do want it to be narrow so it's less visible. So I attached the lace to the ribbon with a small little zigzag, and then the other side of the ribbon to the next row of lace. Again, small zigzag. And that's the last row of lace because that's 7/8 inch edging lace right there. So that's the hem band. As far as the band for the sleeve, it's the same sort of idea. I did regular like baby entredot, and then the subsequential laces afterwards that are listed in the PDF in the pattern. And I attached the entredot to the fabric. I've got a tutorial on how to attach entredot to fabric. And then I took that seam, pressed it towards the sleeve side, and top stitched over it. That way that seam did not flip back and cover up the holes of the entredot. Make sense? So now we have all of our pieces, and we can start putting it together. For the skirt, you're going to need to put a placket in the back of the skirt. I've got a tutorial on how to put a placket in. It is one of my most praised videos. It's helped so many people. I'm so grateful for it. Plackets, I remember starting to learn plackets, and when you get down to that bottom of the placket, it feels like you're going to just sew over a whole bunch of fabric, but you don't. And watch the tutorial, it'll walk you through it. It's like magic. So, got the placket in. Tiny little placket. This is like 1/8 of an inch. I had a lot of fun doing this. I had a lot of fun. Then, for the skirt, for the side pieces of the skirt, since we have a yoke, we need to finish up the arm's eye. It has a little template in the pattern to finish up the arm's eye. Of course, you could just like cut a little curve, okay? Just make sure it's the same curve. It's all good. It's not rocket science. It'll be fine. So we've got our placket. We've got the bottom of the arm's eye. Now we can sew the side seam, like join the front of the skirt to the back of the skirt, okay, at the side seam. I use a French seam to do this, very tiny French seam. If you want to start at the bottom to make sure those edges line up, fine. If you want to start at the top, if you need to trim off 1/4 of an inch to make sure that they're even before attaching your lace, it's all the same difference. It's all good. We're good, right? So now we've got our skirt together. Well, now that you got the skirt together, we can either attach it to the the yoke, or we can put on the lace band. And then to attach this whole lace band, you got your entredeaux is the first piece there. Take that entredeaux, and what I did is I attached it by hand. It's just a cleaner, like less stressful way to do it. You can get up into the little curves of those, the bottom of the little swoops easier. You just have more control. You can ease it as you need to and all that sort of stuff. So that's why I attached it by hand, and now we've got the lace band on. So we've got the skirt together, and the lace band is on the skirt. Now we can attach the skirt to the yoke if you want to do it. There's different ways to do this, but now let's attach the yoke. We've got gathers for the front of the skirt as well as the back of the skirt. Gather it up, adjust the gathers so they're evenly distributed, and then attach it to the yoke pieces. Simple as that. I did a straight stitch to attach it. I cut very close to that straight stitch. I've got about 1/8 of an inch here, and then I zigzagged those stitches. What I actually did is I did one straight stitch to attach, then I went over 1/8 of an inch and I did another row of straight stitches. This second row of straight stitches are just like, they're a tiny stitch, they're not a gather stitch. So you've got your construction, your initial one that's joining the skirt to the yoke. Then you move over 1/8 of an inch and you repeat the same thing. So we've got tiny stitches, 2 rows of tiny stitches, 1/8 of an inch apart. Then I cut very close, like just on the other side of those 1/8 of an inch stitches. The second row, the purpose of this is to keep everything in place. Keep the gathers of the skirt in place. They're just going to hold things in place. That way you can go back and do a zigzag over top to secure the seam down. And it's a nice, dainty little seam. Minimal bulk, all of that goodness. Repeat that for the front and back of your garment. And now we've just got to insert the sleeve. And yes, I did an inserted French seam. Don't panic. Just take your time. Have some patience. Put the sleeve, get the gathers in the top of the sleeve cap. Very, very gentle gathers on this one. Adjust them so they're looking nice. Pin it in place. Wrong sides together. Pinned in place. Oh, you are going to need to sew up the bottom of your sleeve first. Details. So do a French seam on the bottom of your sleeve after you've attached the sleeve band to this. Do the French seam on the bottom of the sleeve. Then do the gathers for the top of the sleeve cap. And now we're pinning everything in place. Wrong sides together. Stitch around. And then cut really close on the other side of those stitches. Flip her inside out. Do the other pass. You got yourself a French seam. From there, it's a matter of, what little stuff do we have left? A little bit of handwork up here on the lace work up here to like flip it in, and then hand sew that down in place, the little raw edge at the neckline for this neckline lace and entre-deux combination. What other handwork do we have? I did 2 buttonholes on the back by hand. So I've got 2. I use floche. Since I use floche for everything else, I just use 1 strand of floche there. I think they're pretty. Although I'm partial to hand-done buttonholes. That's kind of it. That's kind of it. So I hope you have fun with this project. Make your own version of this blue ribbon best in show gown. How did this happen? I don't know, but I'm grateful. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I'm eager for next year. So I hope this was helpful. Also, I hate to say this. I'm going to say this as nicely as I can, but this is all the instruction I'm given for this thing, okay? Yes, I have my other videos that are going to forever live on the YouTubes, but this is all the instruction that I'm going to give for this thing. So if you watch this video and you're confused and your head's going to explode, please, I'm saying this as nicely as I can, but please do not send me a dissertation email of all the things. I can't. So this is it. If this made sense, if you're eager for it, go to Farmhouse, get the supplies, do your own, have fun. But if it's not, that's fine. We'll just catch you in the next one. And either way, I hope all is well with everybody. I always appreciate y'all for watching, and I hope to catch you on the next one.